While we're waiting, why don't you guys type into the box and tell us what it is that you would like to gain from this conversation. And we're going to be focusing in on lead gen. So type in your questions while we're working on the screen thing. We're clicking buttons, guys. Okay, so most effective schedule for lead gen. How to develop the right habits. Awesome, okay.
Structure the ISA's day. What to say to online leads. Love to know how to light a fire on lead gen.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Oh, and all your Raleigh, North Carolina referrals. Can you guys see us yet?
If you can see us, tell us how awesome we look.
No. Can't see. Schedule for ISA.
Okay. Adela, can you nod your head that you know that they can't see us? Okay. So the person organizing this, Adela, she's awesome. She's working on fixing that. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and jump in at least with talking. And if you guys can't see us, that's really sad, but it's okay. So we'll go ahead and we'll run through this anyway. All right, so I'm here with Haro. My name's Anna Kruger, and I work with Haro is the team. The Haro group in Greenville, South Carolina is the team I started on. And now I've partnered with Tim Heil, and I help run the MAPS ISA coaching program through MAPS. So that's who I am, and Haro is the rainmaker that I started with. So Haro, tell everybody a little bit about your background and how you really just got into sales in general and then eventually into real estate.
Yeah, so sales started for me. I was a freshman in college. I grew up in Boston. I was a freshman in college down here in South Carolina, and overheard a girl one day on the way to dinner. I had to pay for college on my own. And on the way to dinner one night, overheard a girl talking to one of the guys from my hall about she'd earned $14,000 the previous summer.
In a summer, $14,000.
One summer, yeah. So I just had one question: was it legal? And
would that have made a difference?
I don't know if it would have made a difference. So come to find out, she had sold educational books and Bibles door to door during the previous summer, and I went to take a look at the program and when I was looking at it, it was clear that they had a system and a model, and what I understand now that I don't know that I fully understood back then, but like scripts and schedule and, whose door do you knock on? And it was just door-to-door sales, literally 80 hours a week, knocking on doors. And I ended up, long story short, there's a bunch of different parts of that, but I ended up being with that company about 8 years, 8 summers is the way we counted it, and eventually became a sales manager and a recruiter. So I would recruit students and we'd go out. If people think, very similar to the Southwestern company, good question, saw that. Actually, our company was started by people who were from Southwestern, and did that for 8 summers. I was, like I said, a recruiter, a sales manager. And if you think selling books door to door is hard, try recruiting people to sell books door to door. Even harder, and their parents all think you're a scam. And that was fun. So that was how I got started in sales. I was just looking at the numbers, and I think there's a really instructive thing. And since is the video still not working?
I'm sad y'all can't see us. We look really nice today.
I know. I'm wicked good looking. Anyway.
All right, we'll just keep going. It's all right.
I guess this means we just have to be more engaged with our ears. It's just to make you guys listen harder, because this mimics an ISA call.
That's right.
So I just ran some numbers. I found my old weekly reports, and we had to do tracking daily. So like we actually had this card. We would track how many doors we knocked down, people we talked to, and how many times we made a presentation. So our goal was to do, watch this, 20 presentations a day.
Oh, interesting.
Back then.
Okay.
And so come to find out, over 8 summers, I had over 16,417 conversations with people at the door.
Write that down, you guys, so that when he tells you his results, you can see it. So just say that again.
What's going on there? Damn, this black screen is attractive. Looking good. Anyway, so 16,417, like I knock on the door, someone answers, and it had to be a decision maker for me to count it as a call.
Okay.
And when I say call, it wasn't a phone call, it was a face-to-face. We just call in on the client or potential client. and 16,417, we called them approaches.
Okay.
And then to do 10,429 presentations.
Okay.
So over those 8 summers, I personally, with a client or a potential customer, did 10,429. So anyway, when I got into real estate, you asked how I got into real estate. Eventually, I transitioned out of that business. I'd gotten married. We had our first child, and every summer was away from Greenville and where I live now. And it was time for a new career. So I looked at several options and landed on real estate for a number of reasons, and was a buyer's agent on a team right away. And this is 2009, and we all know the market was so awesome in 2009. And in fact, it was, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But 2009, I got into real estate. I'm on a team that has like 7 agents, 1 ISA, and I sold 33 houses in my first 12 months, which was good for number 1 agent on that team at the time. And, people were like, man, how'd you do that? And I was like, well, I showed up every day at 8 and worked till 5 or 6, and then worked on Saturdays, and I would call on magic hour on Sunday. So one of my things, my first year in real estate, and I did it the next couple of years too. Eventually it tailed off. But my first year when I was building that base, Sunday night from like 7 to 9, it's just magic hour. People are relaxed. They're home. And I'm not saying this is for everybody, but certainly for me, it was, my dial to contact ratio was through the roof. Like, they're just going to answer the phone. They're relaxed. They've had a good weekend. Yeah. And it's just an easier conversation, less distractions. They're chilled out. I love that. So I just did that. And people were like, how'd you do it? And I was like, basically I just showed up to work every day. And so that was my first year, and I'm going to ramble. So I want to make sure I stay on point. We cover what you want to cover.
Okay.
So did that answer your question?
Yeah. It basically sounds like you got started door knocking.
Yep.
And I want to point out something I noticed, as Haro said, is he had about 6,000, right around 6,000 people tell him no. So that's pretty.
No, you can't come in.
No, you can't come in.
And then out of those 10,429 presentations, I didn't run the number on how many were customers. Probably under 2,000. So 80% of those said no as well.
Yeah.
But that was post the conversation. The first 6,000 didn't even let me in.
Yeah. So think about that for a minute. 6,000 people didn't let him in, and then about 8,000 people told him no even after they let him in.
Yeah.
And would you say you were still really successful?
Yeah, I was.
In those summers?
Yep.
Yeah, he was one of their top salespeople. So I think that's really important to note from a mindset standpoint. Is it's normal and expected to get a no and just keep going. The more people you talk to, you're gonna have success. So let's talk through the mindset. So how did you go through that many people telling you no, 6,000 people at the door not even letting you in, and then 8,000 people telling you no, I don't want to buy your product? How did you keep your mindset in a positive state there, and then also in real estate sales?
Yeah, so they taught us so many really cool skills. So every day started with affirmations. Like one of the books that we read that I would recommend for anybody is called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And there was something in there called the scrolls, and those scrolls were just like my constant traveling companion. You just read them all the time. And up in my car, I'd get like index cards, and I'd write my goals on them, and they'd be up in my windshield. So all day long, I'm looking at my goals.
Awesome.
Then we split up the day. We said, okay, we don't working one day, 1 12.5-hour day. We're actually working 3 days. And so from 8 to 12:30 was like my first, we called it a goal period. That was my first goal period. I knew exactly how many calls I needed to, not calls, but like how many doors I needed to knock on, how many presentations I needed to make. And I had a specific goal for that part of the day. And then when that was done, we actually had a ritual on flushing that day. Because we worked 3 days in a day is the way we talked about it.
Okay.
So we had a ritual about how to flush that day. And sometimes I just run around the car just to, what's past is past, good or bad, hit my goals or didn't, it's done.
So what you're saying, I want to make sure I understand. So what you're saying is you did your lead generation, so to speak, and then you did something to clear out the day and start fresh into your next activity.
After lunch.
Okay.
Right back into lead gen.
Okay.
Right? Like that was it. Like my lead gen and the appointment, if you will, in that world was all one and the same.
Right. Okay.
So I would knock on doors, I would make presentations, and then when at that age of 12:30, if I hit my goals or didn't hit my goals, then from 12:30 to 5 was a new, fresh start. And now I got a new set of goals, and I'm going to hit those goals. And then at 5, I'd get a bite to eat. I'd usually meals would be my separating point.
Yeah.
5, get a bite to eat, and then from 5 to 9:30, I'd hit it again.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think, speaking as somebody that has been on Haro's team, is he carried that into the real estate industry, because I knew when I joined the Haro group, it was a non-negotiable. We would meet at 8 in the morning, read a book together. And by 9 o'clock, guys, we were on the phones, and that's just a non-negotiable. Yep. And the reason he made it a non-negotiable is he knew that that was the secret to success. And it was one of those, if you want to be on the Haro group, know that you will be here at 8, and at 9 o'clock you will be on the phone, and that goes until 12 o'clock. And I have to really credit Haro and his... Which
is for all the agents, inside sales and outside, like buyer's agents and listing agents. And then obviously our inside team, they'll take a lunch break and then do their thing afterwards again.
Yeah. And this is the thing is, I think the big difference between an inside sales agent or outside sales agent, whatever you call that, I tend to call them ISAs and lump inside and outside together.
No. When I say outside, I mean people who are taking clients and going out. Outside salespeople.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
ISA and OSA in the Keller Williams parlance means people who handle inbound leads or who are outbound prospectors. That's not what I mean. I mean inside salespeople are the people that are at the office calling outbound or inbound. Okay. Outside salespeople are buyers, like corporations have outside salespeople and inside salespeople.
So in your mind, the outside salespeople are the people out walking around with clients. The inside salespeople are in the office talking with clients to get them in the door.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. So in my mind, the main difference is between an ISA, as you just described it, and like a buyer agent, listing agent, is really everybody's doing the same activity in the morning. If you're a buyer agent or a listing agent, you really are an ISA. I mean, if your job's to talk to people and get people in the door, you're doing all the same activities together in the morning as a team. And then in the afternoon, the ISA just keeps going. And somebody typed in about what's the schedule. And I always looked at it as 3 hours in the morning, talk to the new people. So people I'd never had a conversation with. And then the afternoon was about the follow-ups and actually talking to people that maybe it's the third voicemail or, hey, did you talk to the lender? So 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon. Hopefully that answers your question in there. So Haro,
yeah, and I would just say do whatever works. If that works for you, fantastic. If you need to switch it up, fantastic. I was talking to one of our ISAs the other day, and they were like, "Man, I need some variety." And I was like, "Look, listen. Set your target to hit your standards by the middle of the month, which he's proven to himself that he can do. Hit the standards by the middle of the month, and then go try a new lead generation method. If you want to go knock on doors, fantastic. If you want to go try some business-to-business stuff where you have one relationship that leads to 3 or 4 referrals a year, like." Do whatever, hit your goals by the 15th, and I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, make it fun for yourself. Like, whatever.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that's important to know about ISAs. I know in the MAPS ISA program, I get a lot of questions. And
Sorry, was I not supposed to say that?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Say whatever you want. Okay. is sometimes we get in a box. Like an ISA, I hear.
Well, we've actually started switching to call them our business development team.
Well, there you go. Because that's what it is. And that's the whole idea is, it's not just calling FSBOs. It's not just calling expireds. The job of anybody doing lead generation is go talk to humans and find out if they have a real estate need or who they know that has a real estate need. It's not just it's not just stand at a desk and make calls. It's anything that you can do to go out there and find business. And the trick is to track so that you know how many people you need to talk to hit your goals. I mean, it's super simple. It's just track your numbers, know how many people you need in order to end up with a closing. And then do whatever it takes to get that number. If that's walking door to door, do that. If that's doing calls, do that. If it's a mixture of all of it, then do that. As long as you're hitting your goals, that's and in track so that you know what it takes to hit your goals. So one thing that Haro...
The trick is to track. I think you should hashtag that.
Yeah, the trick is to track. Hey, that's a good hashtag. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
So tell everybody what they should be tracking.
I track every piece of data I can. So how many hours I'm working. One of the things I'm looking for right now is a phone system that actually tracks the amount of time someone's on the phone. Mm-hmm. So how much time I'm on the phone, how many conversations I have, how many times I ask for a referral, how many appointments I've set. From appointments set, obviously you want to know how many of them actually show up. That's the standard on our team is helds. So each ISA has to have a certain amount of held appointments or met appointments or kept appointments. Right. Everyone has a different term for it. So that's a key piece. And then obviously, we're also talking about what price point they're at. What's the average GCI? Because ours are all compensated on a percentage of the commission. So all of ours are licensed. And they're compensated. So we want to see, like, okay, obviously if you set a $300,000 listing and that closes, it's a whole lot different than someone that's 150,000 or 100,000.
Right.
So those are all data that we're tracking, and then closings, and then just if you track all of that consistently, then you can begin to see trends and see. Also want to track how much money you're making so that you see, like you and I talked about earlier. I want to see how much money I'm making for every contact I make.
Yeah.
So if I know every time I make a contact, regardless of whether or not they set an appointment, I'm going to make $6.
Yeah.
Spreadsheet's one way. Someone just asked that. You can track that in a spreadsheet or not. Sometimes some systems have the way to track this. So it just depends on the numbers. But yeah, I mean, if nothing else,
even on paper.
A freaking piece of paper and a spreadsheet works.
Yeah. I found in coaching, a lot of people get super stuck on what system, and obviously CGI is great. If you're with Keller Williams, talk to your market center about getting onto the CGI tool. And really at the end of the day, just keep track of it on paper. If that's where you start, do that. I'm going to give you guys some numbers to write these down so that you know what the averages are, and then track yourself and see how are you doing against the average. So dial to contact, 12% or higher is what you want. If you're calling a list and you're down below 12%, it's not a good list, or it's not a good time of day that you're calling them. So you should never be below 12. If I'm going to call 100 people, at least 12 people should pick up the phone, or it's a waste of time, right? So dial to contact, 12%. Contact to set, industry average is 5%, and realize it can drastically depend on what your lead source is. So I'm just kind of lumping all lead sources together, 5%. From once you set it to it actually showing up, whether you call it had, kept, whatever you call it, but I set an appointment and then the appointment actually happened. What I see a lot of times in coaching is people come in and they're around 40%. Through coaching, we can usually get them up to 80%. And that's using some of the scripting that I learned here at the Haro Group and some of the bold scripting tips. Can y'all hear that leaf blower?
Perfect timing.
Yeah, great timing. And then once it's kept to sign, the industry average is right around 60 to 80%. It just seems to depend. MREA says 65%. I know at the Haro Group from tracking, we were usually above 90%. When I would set an appointment, they would come in and 90% of them would sign, again through scripting. So you want to track those numbers and then just see where do you compare against those numbers. And it's then you can work backwards. I say, and I want to make 100 grand. All I have to do is do the math and figure out how many people I need to talk to every day. It's so simple. And I remember Haro used to talk to me about tracking, and I hated it. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that as a maps coach, but I did. I hated tracking. And I'll never forget the day that we did a team planning day at a coffee shop downtown Greenville. And I wrote down my income goal and worked backwards and figured out all I had to do was talk to 6 people an hour for 6 hours a day. If I talked to 36 people, I would hit my income goal, and my whole perspective changed on tracking and how important that is. So make sure you're tracking your numbers. Okay, let's look at the questions real quick.
There's a bunch of questions.
Okay, let's see. What if
are we switching to questions?
Yeah, we can do some questions. We have about 10 minutes left. So let's see. Contact is set, blah, blah.
Kurt asked earlier, what did you learn from door to door that you took with you to real estate? I mean,
Okay.
it was almost like, what didn't I take from door to door into real estate? I actually, pretty much everything. And I think the strongest thing is mindset. And the mindset that was probably the most helpful is just resiliency. Once you take that many no's, like face-to-face no's, and I got the sheriff called on me a few times and got kicked out of one county, not for anything I did wrong, just because of people are suspicious.
Yeah,
right?
who's that guy knocking on my door?
So you just learn to take the hits and keep rolling, because I still had goals, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't let. There's one time 12 squad cars pulled up on the lawn while I'm like making a presentation to like this stay-at-home mom in her house with like her baby on her lap, and she's like, "They're here for you."
Oh, great.
And I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird. So,
but just keep going.
Keep going. ISA schedule. What does that look like for us? Everyone gets here at 8 a.m. We read together, go to scripts, and then 9 o'clock everyone's on the phone. They all break at noon. then back on the phones from 1 to 5. What if we're below those conversion ratios? I think you just need to, like what Anna was saying, you just need to look at who you're calling, what time of day you're calling them, where you're getting new people from. We get people from Vulcan 7, which is where we get our expireds and for sale by owners.
Yeah.
And then we use Cold Directory for cold calling, and not cold calling, circle calling lists.
Yeah.
I guess that is cold calling.
And you can go to, if you go to isamapscoaching.com, that's the coaching program that we started that has a lot of these tools and systems in there, and we can help you with that. That's part of my passion now, is helping other people be successful, because it's pretty cool to be on a team that went from 50 to 500 in 5 years. I mean, that's pretty astounding, actually. And I understand that if you can learn those lead generation habits, what that does for your family. It's not just about having another house close. It's, okay, when the house closes, now you can afford to send your kids to college or go on the vacation. So anything we can do to help you increase your conversion, that's what we're here for. So go to isamapscoaching.com, and if you're interested in the program, we can talk about it. And of course, we can keep answering questions here too. But that's where you can go to learn more information. Okay, let's keep looking at questions. One tool for you guys with the whole 12%, somebody typed in, what if you're below 12%? You need to evaluate what the list is that you're calling. But if you're doing circle calling or cold calling, go to melissadata.com, and it's a tool that will tell you the turnover rate for a neighborhood. And that's something you can check into. If you're not having great success, melissadata.com can tell you if you're even calling a good neighborhood, and what their turnover rate is and things like that. Okay. All right, I think we answered.
What are bold scripts? Bold is a class, Keller Williams course, open to anybody.
Yeah.
It should be coming, if you're near a local Keller Williams office, you should be able to talk to their leadership and find out when bold is coming to your area next. It's one of the best real estate classes that I've ever seen. It's not really, frankly, it's not just a real estate class. Like, it's a mindset
more than
course.
anything.
And when I came from book sales to real estate, like, I was so impressed because it reminded me of the structure and the accountability and the coaching that helped us to become good door-to-door salespeople. And now here it was in real estate. I was like, okay, this is cool that this exists in real estate, because that was one thing that the door-to-door sales business, like with the company I was with, did really well. Yeah.
And why don't you tell everybody, how many times have you taken bold?
I've taken bold 6 times.
6 times. So 6 times. So it's that learning mindset and going back to what works. And I know Hara really well. He's a creative guy. He likes to think outside the box. And at the end of the day, he follows the system, right? As much as I know he likes creativity and things like that, he doesn't do that with his foundational business models. He follows what works. He follows what Bold says. He follows what Gary talks about, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book.
It's just completely irrational to me that if someone's gone there and figured it out, for me to figure it out again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a complete waste of time.
Yeah, go be creative in another area of life, right? Or not. That's true. All right. So one thing I wanted to ask you about was one thing that really encouraged me when I worked with you is I was discouraged about the no, and you talked to me about figuring out how much money you made per no. So talk to them about how you do that. Like, you taught me how to do that. It drastically changed.
Yeah. So if you're tracking these numbers and then you track your pay, right, or your commissions that you've got, and then you can eventually just divide the total, right? Like, I've made whatever the number is, let's say $20,000 this year on commissions, and a lot of ISAs have some sort of a base in addition to what they set for production, what they get for production. So you just divide what you get for production by the number of contacts. Yeah. It's like, man, every contact I make, regardless of whether or not I set an appointment, I'm making $6. Yeah. An additional $6, and I still have this base salary. Yeah. So it's like, wow, I'll just make a bunch of contacts.
That's right. I remember I got to the point where I kept track on a piece of paper, and I knew that if I got to 20 contacts, on average, I would have at least 1, if not 2 appointments. And after Hara talked to me about this mindset, I really got excited when my paper would get down to 18 or 19, because it's like, well, I just know I'm going to set an appointment in the next 1 or 2 phone calls, because that's what my numbers tell me. And in doing the conversions with people in the ISA coaching program, we find usually for every no, you make between $50 and $100. Because we've done that with several people in the program, dividing out their commission for how many people it takes to get a closing. And usually people are making between $50 and $100 for every no that they get. So if I said to you, hey, would you call somebody and have them tell you no and make $50, would you do it? I think, yeah, I'll do that. So it's changing that mindset around the no.
And that number goes up over time.
Yeah.
Because as you do more, your conversion, your skill gets better.
Yeah.
So that number increases over time. So in the early going, it's like, wow, it's here right now. In the future, it's going to be up here.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Yeah, and I know when I first started, it was usually around 20 contacts to get somebody to agree to meet. And towards the end, before I started coaching, it was down to 8 consistently. Every 8 people is between 6 and 8. Month after month, an appointment would set. So definitely own the scripts. I used to listen to Diana Kokoska's scripts in my car driving to work, and it made a big, big difference. So Matt asked, what's the biggest lesson that you learned from Haro? I think the biggest lesson I learned from Haro is no matter what, hell or high water, you're lead generating from 9 to 12, and you just keep going. That is the foundational. Listen, if you have enough leads, if you have enough people agreeing to work with you, that really does solve everything else. I remember hearing lead generation solves every problem in real estate. And it was almost like I was looking for a way to prove that that wasn't true. And I started thinking through issues in real estate, in running real estate business. And for each one I went back to and thought, yeah, if you had enough business, you could hire somebody to help you with that problem. If you had enough business, it would be okay if something didn't work out with one of your clients, if their contract fell through, because you'd have more clients to work with. And so really, truly, everything goes back to lead generation, no matter what, 9 to 12.
Allison said, best advice for daily, hey Allison, for daily prep before lead gen, like who do you know who you're going to call at the beginning of each lead gen session? Allison, this is where I would say, like, if someone doesn't have an assistant, I don't know, like, the best answer for that. Actually, if you look up on KW Connect, Gary Keller's file box system or note index card box, that it's a paper system for who to call, and I would do that until I had an assistant, and then I'd let the assistant figure it out. And then Matt said if our team had script practice and meetings at 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. Obviously, Matt, I'd love to ask you questions about what you're covering during that time. I would say anytime you have something and you have a question as to whether or not it's working, change it for a month, see if, track the results. If the results go up, then keep it. If they go down, then maybe change it back or try something new. Yeah. Yeah. And somebody just typed in, Allison said, I get hung up on details. And I think that's a big thing a lot of people get hung up on, myself included. And one thing I did learn from Haro is just go do it. Just go make the calls. Go learn as you go and be okay. One thing I loved about being on Haro's team is in our team meetings, we would talk about wins. So what went well this week? And eventually we incorporated, well, what did you fail at this week? And it was so relieving to have that talked about on a regular basis. And the first few times we did that as a team, it was kind of slow. And eventually it was like people had pent up stuff they wanted to share that they failed at, because you learn from failure and you learn to get okay with failure. And that was one huge thing. So you don't have to have it all figured out to get moving. I think of it kind of like a car. If you've ever been driving a car and it is really hard to move the steering wheel. But if you get it moving even just 2 miles per hour, just getting into motion, now it's easier to turn that steering wheel in the right direction and you can make adjustments. So get into motion and learn as you go. It's 1 o'clock. I can hang a few extra. I don't know if you can. Let's take 1 or 2 more questions here and then we'll wrap up. So Matt says, how can I improve my conversion rates? I have the habit and love calling every day, but I want to improve my conversion. Is script practice the answer? Yeah, Matt, that's the biggest thing, is find a script that works. And that's the whole trick, is find a script that actually works. Find one from somebody that's proven to work. So Bold is obviously a great place, the class we referenced earlier. We have a lot of scripts in the ISA coaching program. Again, it's at ISA Maps Coaching, and it's really a lead generation program. We have people in there that aren't just ISAs. It's really, let us help you convert leads at a higher level. That's what that's all about. So ISAMapsCoaching.com. Another resource for you is go to ISA Masterminds group on Facebook. There's a leaf blower right outside the window. Sorry, guys. I feel like he's just parked right outside.
Yeah, it's like he knew we were doing this and said, hey, I'm going to go blow leaves outside the window. But if you go to ISA Mastermind group on Facebook, that's another great place where you can mastermind scripts and things like that. Oh, Matt, you typed that in. Thank you. Okay. think we answered that one. And here's the thing, you guys, with scripts, I used to be pretty averse to scripts because I wanted to be genuine Anna. And I felt like if I had a script, I'm not being me anymore, I'm being fake. And what I learned is once I mastered the script, and when I say mastered the script, I meant Haro could walk up to me and say, hey, Anna, what's the expired script? And I could just do it without thinking. I didn't have to have it in front of me. I could just go. Once it was mastered, it no longer felt scripted. So if you're working with scripts and you feel scripted, that's a sign that you actually haven't mastered it. Once you've mastered it, you just do it on autopilot and you can add your own flavor in there and know that you're following the right system. So master the scripts. That might look like writing them out over and over. It might look like straight up memorizing it. One of the best tips I can give you for scripting is memorize it first. Then once you memorize it, start role-playing it with somebody easy. So role-play with somebody that's not giving you all these weird objections. And the idea is get comfortable with it. Once you've role-played it easy several times, now you start adding in some of those objections that you get on the phone. A lot of people just jump right in and they have fun with scripting and make it all these weird objections, and it doesn't ever give you a chance to just get it down. So that would be one huge suggestion I have. Okay, let's do one more question and then we'll wrap it up. What's the best way to master scripts? Record them. Actually, yeah, that's a great idea. Record yourself doing a script. Truthfully, for the first 3 months in real estate, Haro recommended that I put Diana Kokoska CDs in my car that we got from the Bold class. I stuck them into my car, listened to them on the way to work, and I love music. It was kind of annoying. But at the end of the day, after about 3 months, I had those scripts mastered, and then it was more script maintenance. And that's would be what I would recommend. So Haro, before we wrap up, if you had one last parting advice to give to everybody, I mean, you guys, he's somebody that had 50 clients in 2012, and the team's going to help over 500 in 2017. So clearly something works. If you had to give one piece of parting advice, what would it be?
Seek wisdom.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
I mean, like I said, there's many sources of wisdom. There's only two sources of knowledge, and that's your own experience or others' experience. And one way is longer and more painful, and the other way is shorter and less painful.
Yeah.
So rationality says go with shorter and less painful.
Yeah.
Unless you have 5,000 years to live, and then you could probably figure out everything.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that about Haro is he just follows the models and systems. And I remember the first event I went to, people around us were like, wow, these models and systems are so amazing. And I was sitting there thinking, how do people not know this stuff? And it's just because Haro implements what's in the book on the team. So the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, just follow what that says and you'll have success. And I know that from talking with Tim Heil as well, who's ultimately over this MAPS ISA coaching program. He's the same way. He just follows the models and systems and it leads to massive success. So if you would like more help with things, several of you typed in, how do I improve my conversion rates, things like that, go to isamapscoaching.com and submit your information. And one of us will reach out to you and ask questions. We can set up a consult and learn more about your business and find out what you need and how we can help you. So isamapscoaching.com, and then also the ISA Mastermind group on Facebook. I run that group and it's become a great group of people just contributing and things like that. So check that group out. Matt says, will you be doing this again? Yes, we will be doing this again. So we're going to announce that on the ISA Mastermind group page when. I don't have a date yet, but we're going to start doing these much more regularly. And we really appreciate you guys joining us today. And have a great day. Bye, guys.